All right, good folks, good folks. Well, thank you for being here with us. We are here tonight talking about for the wannabe runners, which I am. I'm a wannabe runner. Reggie will tell you as we get through this. I'm what I call a baby runner. I told Sabrina I'm a baby runner. But here today we have Keenon with us. Keenon James, captain of the Washington, D.C. chapter of Black Men Run, a great organization that I stay in touch with and make sure that I continue to get guidance and inspiration from. So thank you for being here, Keenan. We have Sabrina Joy, lead habit coach with Tending Habits, LLC. Sabrina is in Dallas, Texas. And Reginald Harrison, one of my favorite people on earth, not that you all can't be that. We'll continue to work on that. But Reginald Harrison, among many things, the founder of Sun Chasers. So thank you all for being here. As I said, this is about for the wannabe runners. And man, let's jump into it. I will save the long intros for the bios and the website and the social media. I think the big part here, important for me, this is a part one, right? And the part two could be for the real runners like you all, right? But for everybody else in the world that's trying to get there, I want to talk a little bit about how people get there. And I can tell you a little bit about my journey. Reggie knows a little bit about my journey. I am a former baseball player, football player. So that stuff is all fast twitch, right? Sprints and foul poles and gassers and things of that nature. So we weren't running super long distance. And if you said 2 miles, 3 miles, I mean, somebody would just look at you like crazy. I wish I would have known later in life as I was introduced to this. I wish I would have known even in college how I could have maintained a lifestyle by just running, a couple of miles a day or a couple of miles every other day. It really could have been very, just very helpful in just maintaining. But I didn't know that. My wife invited me to a turkey trot many years ago. She dragged me out there and I almost died. I needed to have somebody come scoop me up off the pavement. But it started me on this journey to, oh man, this is something I can do. Now, interestingly enough, that was a 5K, I think in 2013. That was a 5K. And I had 3 rules in that 5K. Don't die, very important. Don't hurl, and keep running. And by the way, keep running. I should have you all close your ears because you all are real runners. Keep running to me at that time mean don't walk. So if I was skipping or sashaying or anything, if I was moving my body forward other than a walk, that was literally a run for me, which I was happy for. And I accomplished it. The interesting thing about it, which I want to talk about soon for baby runners, is that people that run can easily jump into what's the next step and how you got to get there so fast. So we are literally, at post 5K, my first 5K ever, a real run. And we go to Starbucks down the street and somebody sees me and we have our stuff on and Letitia's a runner at that point and somebody's like, oh man, you got to run a 10K. I'm like, I can't even feel my lower extremity. And you all are talking about doubling the mileage. This is crazy. So, Keenan, we'll start with you. Give us some advice. I mean, for all the wannabe runners out there, right? For folks that, like me, are looking at, they might be looking at a couch to 5K. I wasn't even looking at a couch to 5K. I was looking at a get out of bed, put on your socks, and go out there and try to do something. But for everybody who's trying to start this journey, give us some guidance. Give us some advice. What are your thoughts? How do you get there?
So I would give the guidance that I took myself, which was first get up and walk. That was the problem. I wasn't doing any type of physical activity before I really got into running. And so the first thing I did was I took the dog for a walk. I mean, the dog needed to walk. That was my inspiration. The dog needs to get out there. And so that's the first thing I did. And that's my advice to anybody is first calibrate yourself. A lot of us have similar experience to you talking about. We played high school or collegiate sports. We have the glory days in our head, but the glory days aren't in our knees anymore and in our ankles. And so we try to relive that moment, but our body is not going to relive it. So my advice is, first just get up and walk, see how it feels. A lot of times that competitive edge, that competitive mentality it comes back to you, and you start thinking about all the things that you have to put into that exercise routine, because it is more than just the exercise. It's looking at your holistic approach, and that's your diet. I always tell people, you cannot outrun a bad diet. If you're getting out there and you're running, 8 miles a day, but you're still eating poorly, it's all for naught. So the first thing I would do is get up there, walk. And then that second thing, in order to get to that next step, is evaluate your diet. Look at what you're eating. Is a part of that progression to getting to that run is actually looking at what you're putting into the machine.
What about you, Sabrina? What do you say? How do we get started?
So I always, I look at it like you would start any habit, right? Which is, first understanding yourself, knowing what makes you tick and what motivates you, and starting from there. So for some people, that might be a competition or something that's 3 months down the road, and you can keep your eye on that prize and stay motivated day to day. For other people like myself, I need shorter term goals. I was a sprinter in college, and my mindset is always.
Yes, you were.
What's the,
yes, you were.
I was. Then I got older and had some children, and there was no sprinting to be had. But knowing kind of what motivates you will kind of keep you in it and not have you either overwhelmed because you're overwhelmed by long-term goals, or won't have you bored because you need something that's, a little bit quicker to attain. So I say do a little bit of self, take stock of self and personality and what makes you tick, and then design your approach based on that.
Reggie, before we have you jump in, Keenan and Sabrina reference competitiveness, right? And I think that was so important for my journey, in the sense of, to you all's point, really kind of finding what works for you. I was in a situation where I had worked for county government at that point for almost, I don't know, let's just say 9.5 years overall, Gadsden County and Leon County. And for many years in Leon County, I would open up the courthouse 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever for a big run in Tallahassee. So I was watching this process, them get ready for this spring race, going through this process. And one time when I was running that, it clicked for me. This was after I almost died at the turkey trot I told you all about. But when I was running that, if I was after that turkey trot, knowing I had to get better, doing those short distances a little bit at a time. And it's also amazing how much your body and your mind can start connecting, right? Like, oh, this can work. But I was opening the courthouse that morning, and I remember walking downstairs through the lobby and all that good stuff. And I was walking by people and kind of, passing by, stepped over a couple of people, excuse me, things of that nature. And I remember looking at a couple of people, and the scene just looked different. It almost looked like people were putting on war paint, right? Or like football players putting on like eye black or something. I mean, like, I was thinking to myself, somebody's over there stretching, somebody's over there getting their shoes right. I was like, oh, these folks getting ready. I mean, like, ready. And it kind of clicked in my mind, like, oh, this is something that can be competitive. This can be like something that I could look forward to, like every race getting better, every race getting faster, every race getting stronger. And then the community that I started to see there too was a whole nother aspect that I had no idea. But that competitiveness definitely helped move me forward to get better, to get stronger, and also realize that I didn't have to do it all in one day. I could just do a piece at a time. Because I tell you, to Keenan's point, in the sense of, after that terrible experience with that turkey trot, running and just trying to get up the street to touch another piece of pavement somewhere, and it was a mile, 1.1 mile. And I remember thinking, like, this is awful. Like, how will I ever get home? Like, I want to curl up and die when I get there. But eventually, just, as I got stronger, and at some point, you can warm up doing a mile or something like that. It's just amazing how these things start clicking. So obviously, Reggie, Sabrina is, as I reminded her, an elite athlete, right? Because if you run college and you run college at a HBCU and you run college at a HBCU in the South, you are an elite athlete. Period. There's no debate there. Yourself, obviously, you have a background specifically in swimming, I'm sure some other things. You lift trucks on your day off and push large animals around and things like that. But for everybody that doesn't have it like that, Reggie, and that's not their path there, what do you say, man? How do you get people, how does somebody get where they need to be for their path?
You're hilarious. So I think
I'm not that funny.
I think to your exact point, I think the first thing I would advise people to do is to actually don't talk like John Brown is right now, right? Don't when you lead a statement by saying I'm a wannabe runner, you've already kind of set the tone. You've already kind of placed this bar in front of yourself, and you've already given yourself sort of a trap door to kind of fail. And so people will use that as justification for not really putting in the effort to make it a consistent thing, or putting in the effort to really just stick with it, period. And because it's too much, they put that bar way too high. So I would say, and I think this is sort of a kind of an amalgamation of what Sabrina and Keenan both said, is that be reasonable about what goals you have, and understand that this is a long play. You have all the opportunity in the world to grow into the version of yourself that you want to be. But don't cut yourself short out the gate because you set this bar, because what's going to happen is that your morale is going to be low. You're going to feel like I'm a failure. You're thinking about your glory days, and it was so easy before. And then you start thinking of all the things that you're tackling now. And now you have this very easy, very slippery slope, very, wide open door to walk through to say, this isn't for me. This doesn't have to be for me, because you started it by saying, I'm not an athlete, or I'm not whatever this form of it is. So I would say number one is, this is your race. This is your goal. This is your space you've created for yourself. Own that. And honestly, there's a pride literally in pacing that out, because then you'll be able to say, just like you said, you did your turkey trot. I know you've done several races since then. And so you've seen yourself progress. You start seeing results. It's the same thing with like weight loss. The same thing with adopting, I think, an eating regimen. I hate to say diet, but like an eating regimen. You start seeing this progress, and then that becomes a positive reinforcement to keep going. But don't cut that positive reinforcement out the gate, because it's a hard thing to what is it, tough road to hoe, otherwise. So I say that.
Keenan, you again, president of the DC chapter for Black Men Run. Obviously, Black men nationwide, worldwide are a part of this organization. How do you all? What's you all's approach? I mean, I know people pulled me into the organization, so it's definitely more of a community, seeing other people involved, encouraging each other. They were running in different areas, trying to find somebody if I'm in a city, things of that nature. How do you all approach men, and what do you do to keep them encouraged?
Our main approach is that it's about the man that is who we want to address, not just the physical being. And so we do it through our fellowship. Our group runs is what we focus on, that activity, encouraging exercise, but also understanding that that's the opportunity to ask those questions about life that you really didn't know the answer or who to ask. And so how do you create that comfortable fellowship, that bonding opportunity? Because you're right. We talk about hypertension, we talk about diabetes, we talk about obesity, we talk about heart disease, we read about it, but a lot of times we don't talk to each other about it and how we're dealing with it. And so that's one of the things that we try to encourage through our exercise, is also talking about a healthy living. Running is a great way to maintain weight or lose weight, maintain your weight, but it's also a great stress reliever. And we talk to guys about that. Yes. How do you use this as your opportunity to decompress? How do you use this as your opportunity for family time? You build around that. How do you set that model? And so what we try to do is embrace that holistic approach to a healthy living, a healthy lifestyle, and by staying supportive of our brothers, whether it's through social media or that one-to-one contact. I check on the brothers right now during COVID, because we haven't been doing group runs, so I got to check on them. Make sure that they stay in discipline, because it's easy to fall off. So, you have that support system that is ultimately looking to encourage you to live healthy. But for a lot of us, the race is the motivator, as we were talking about. That competitive piece says, look, once they open this back up, you still need to be in shape, because we're going to hit that pavement. It keeps us all going. And so we try to make sure we facilitate that through weekly group runs, but that interaction and fellowship, that is no matter where you are, your pace doesn't matter. Your pace doesn't matter. What matters is that you're out there moving. If it's a walk, if it's a skip, what matters is that you're out there.
Yeah.
So race, let's talk about that, right? That is such a complex thing, I found out, right? Again, for me, as I just talked about it, it set a schedule also for me, right? And I was making a financial contribution, so now there's an investment, which is even more encouragement. Like, I can race and sign up on race day, and it's X amount of dollars, or I could sign up early, and then there's less. There's a discount, but so there's a cost savings, but also now there's a commitment, and I gotta hit it, right? So if I'm doing it properly, I can really schedule these things out, and a couple of weeks out, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, maybe every week, depending on what's going on, I can do it. But I also found out in talking to other people, specifically brothers, if you say race, it turns into something else, because now it's like, again, back to that competition, right? Like it's something. It's not just like, let's go around the block or let's meet up at the park or something like that. It's like, it's more. It was this anxiety. I have this amazing experience. In my old neighborhood, I got a good buddy, Leonard Huff, and Leonard fishes, and he's out there cutting the grass, and so he's definitely staying active and is doing more than just something, right, for mental and family health and all of that good stuff. And he sees me running in the neighborhood one day, and he started talking. Hey man, I gotta run with you that one day. I gotta run with you one day. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Let's do it. And then one day he's like, hey, I'm gonna run with you. Let's go. So at that point, I'm like running. I'm not dying at the top of the block. I'm actually running, and I slowed down. He kept up. He got a little bit up the road and was like, I'm turning back. I'm like, all good. We'll do it again, right? Just encouraging. We did that a couple of times, right? And then we started talking about a race. Cool. Picked out a race, certain area. I made it easy, right? Like somebody did me. I'm gonna go with you, even though Letitia didn't make it easy. She just told me, like, pick out what size shirt you want. That's how I got signed up. But we said, we're going to go to a race. I'm going to, pick you up or whatever. I live 2 houses down from him. And I got this text, probably like right close to midnight, I think, the way I remember it. Right close to midnight. And he said, it was like a simple question. It was like, how many miles had you run before your first race? To your point, Reggie, right? Like an out, right? How many miles had you run before your first race? And I responded immediately, none, right? And then he had more questions, right? There's a series of like 7 questions, and I realized what he was doing. What he was doing is like the anxiety of like, oh, there's a thing tomorrow, right? And I was like, hey man, cool. It's it's not like that. When you get out there, you run your own race. I learned real close. Don't be chasing them little girls, them little ponytails, right? A little girl that's 8 years old. I think I'm taller than her and stronger than her or whatever, and I'm out there hurt something trying to keep up with her. There's that old man. I think I should be fast. Hey man, I don't pay attention to none of them folks, right? No strollers and double strollers and 2 dogs. And I don't pay. Forget them folks. Them folks was fast before they start pushing strollers. Don't pay attention to that. You got to run your own race. But that morning when I got up, so again, we're texting back and forth, man. It's probably like, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a little back and forth. That morning I got up, literally pulled my truck out the driveway, backed my truck into his driveway, 2 driveways over, and went and knocked on the door, right? And when we talk about Black men's health, we talk about that's what it is, right? It's not, as you know, Reggie, it's not this like arm around the shoulder, like, hey, we should do better. It's more like a poke in the chest, like, hey, man, like we got children to raise, right? We got communities to build. This is for real. Let's go. So I pulled the truck in the driveway, knocked on the door, like, let's go. Come on. Like, we got it. And then when he got there and got encouraged and saw this community at all, he was hyped, right? He was like, oh man, when's the next race? When can I sign up? I'm like, hang on. Let's get out of here today, Also him just realizing you get there early, whatever time the race starts, you run a 5K, 3.1, that could happen pretty fast. And now you got the rest of your day, right? It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock. You got the rest of your day ahead of you and you've already got in your workout. That was a pretty amazing feat. But that saying race is very complex sometimes in the sense of what it can do to somebody mentally. Sabrina, you obviously do habits for, life. what are your thoughts about that in the sense of those words and maybe things that you can do to help not psych yourself out and keep yourself on track along the way here?
Yeah. Well, you know, I like to say the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So probably that anxiety that he was feeling and kind of falling victim to, he probably has that approach with other things that kind of cause him, you know, trying new things or doing something that's out of his comfort zone. But a lot of times just peeling it back to its most simplest thing and just doing the next best right thing. So, you know, whether that's, okay, let me lace up so I can train, so I can be ready for this race. Let me, just, run around the block, for the women out there, that have had children, that getting back in shape after you've had a child, that first, run is not really, it's not a run. It's a let me walk around the block. And it can be humbling when you came off of, running marathons and all of that, but you can't think about that. You really just have to think of, what's the next step, break it down, and then consistency, just kind of winning the day, day after day, and not thinking about race day so much. But if you win all the days in between today and race day, come race day, that's just, that's just icing on the cake. That's not a, it's not a big deal. So that's part of it too. I wanted to comment on the health piece of all of this. I work for a health nonprofit. I was reading this article the other day. There were a couple of stats that really just kind of stopped me in my tracks. One of them was that 6 in 10 Americans are living with a chronic condition that requires daily medication. 6 out of 10. Wow. And that's with at least one. We know many people are living with multiple. And that daily medication, as we all know, y'all, we've all seen the pharmaceutical ads. Most medications address one issue, and then there's a laundry list of side effects that often need their own medications to manage. And over time, your kidneys fail. You know what I mean? It's just not good. A lot of these chronic conditions are preventable. A lot of them can be handled just by easing back on the salt. In my opinion, easing back on some of the animal protein. And certainly upping the amount of exercise. So, there's so many good reasons why, we should, be gathering or even solo, exercising, whether it's running or some other, something else. Hopefully it's a combination of a few different things. But it's critical. It's not just about fitting in a certain pair of pants or a certain pair of shorts. That's a nice benefit at the end, but it's really about, like someone said, being here.
Yep. Reggie, I found that my whole perspective changed when I started running, right? I remember a scenario where I was over in West Florida, where my wife is from, and we were somewhere, she was getting her hair done. And I said, I'm gonna walk home, right? I'm gonna walk to your parents' house. And she was like, you're gonna walk? And my whole, the distance had changed, right? Because at that point, if I was running 5 or 6 miles, and if I was gonna walk 5 miles and it was a beautiful day and I just felt like, walking, my whole perspective changed, right? Just so critical in everything. I mean, to Sabrina's point, in the sense of health and nutrition and everything else. Also, it's amazing how delicious water tastes when you're out there starving for it, because you're, just getting battered by the sun, or the mileage is up and things of that nature. Like, so many things change and definitely can start positively affecting other things. So as Keenan said, it's not just about the running, but also about fitness and moving and so many different things. Obviously, we ain't gonna be bragging on you. We know you're a triathlete, so I'm gonna be shaming us today. But all of those things, you do those things to really create balance and work different parts of your body and mentally and all kind of things like that. And I know Sabrina wanted to jump in on this also, because we talked about this pre-show. There's so much more you can do than just running. Running is an amazing thing, but there's so much more that can be done. And again, just understanding that back to that perspective, how things change. Biking could potentially be easier if you're stronger running, and swimming, if you're swimming, running could potentially be easier because you feel stronger and things of that nature. What are your thoughts on that, Reg?
Yeah, I agree. There's this thing in the triathlon or the sport of triathlon, this idea of instead of being medium in one sport, I get to be, really mediocre in all three, right? And so it's this, and I get the haha about it, but honestly, it's it creates opportunity for you to truly really push yourself. Like part of what I love about triathlon is that you really don't realize your limits until you actually are looking at it. And oftentimes, especially when you're doing the sort of the longer distance races, that wall is a very real thing. When you're doing 5Ks and 10Ks, you feel like it's this ethereal sort of theoretical thing, conceptual thing. And then, before you've done your first half marathon, when you get to your mile 10, you're like, why can't I move my legs? And when you're training for it, yeah, like literally, like what bear just jumped on my back? Like I have no idea like how that happened. But then even more tangibly, and this is to your point, John, when I started training for a marathon, which is 26.2 miles, don't forget the 0.2. There was this literal thing happened at like mile 18 where like not only did my body fail, I literally, like all of my thoughts started shifting. I didn't want to, much less I didn't want to live anymore. I definitely didn't want to run anymore. Like I wanted to stop. I wanted to go find somebody in the crowd. I wanted to get some Twizzlers and some pretzels and, some water or some kind of Gatorade and just walk off and just, I don't want to medal. I don't want anything, but literally the whole scope of your thoughts change. And it's because your body is literally in this like deficit and it starts it's almost in like survival mode. And it puts you into this place to where, man, on the other side of that is exhilarating. And that's why, again, this concept of like building up your stamina to get to a point to where you can do 2 miles and then 3 miles and then 5 miles and then ultimately to whatever distance, because there are people out there that do ultra marathons, right? Where they do like double distance and triple distance. So that's an entirely different type of species of person. But the idea is that at one point, I think Keenan mentioned this earlier, at one point they were just walking their dog. I don't care what fitness level you are. At some point you had to, you crawled before you jogged, before you ran. And I think that same approach exists today. And so I like triathlon because I don't like doing the same thing over and over again. I did have some pretty good successes as a competitive swimmer, and then when I entered into the sport of triathlon after college, I had this I wanted to experience the adrenaline of competition again, but I didn't want to do it exactly in swimming. Well, the minute I entered into this sport that had super low representation, no one looked like me, I felt like, well, great, this is an opportunity to start at the bottom of the totem pole and try to work my way up. And the journey you learn so much about yourself when you're looking at all of these limits that you would impose on yourself. I mean, that's why I can speak so passionately about what I said when I first started, because I came into this thing immediately expecting to have success, immediately saying, well, I've never run 5 miles that I've known, but of course I can run 5 miles. And I made it to like 4, and it was like, who in the world does this, for fun? And so I think this process of all of a sudden, that first time I did hit the 5 miles, and then when I hit 10 miles and I did my first half, like that becomes the thing. And it's not even the addictive part of just, trophy chasing, but it's truly this thing of like, man, like I've actually put in work and I'm getting a return on that investment. And that's actually a transferable experience to every other part of your life. Whether it's in your career, professional, personal, relationships, et cetera, this idea that if I put the work in now, there will be a harvest if I simply, I love the way that Sabrina said it, you win all the days leading up to it. The way I always say it is, good days add up, but I like the way that you kind of captured it too. And it really is this emphasis of, I don't have to worry about 2 weeks from now. I just have to get through this workout right now. And then I know that I can trust that will set me up for the workout on Thursday, which will set me up for Saturday. And by the time, before I know it, I'm running times that or whatever your goal is. It may not even be a time. It may just be literally completing a distance on your own feet, uninjured, still feeling strong. That's a very worthwhile goal for yourself. And I think that's something that I wish people talked about more often and not made it such a time-intensive, competitive thing. Because again, that's one of those other opportunities that people use and take to say, you know what, this sport isn't for me. But meanwhile, they're battling conditions. And man, if they just went out and just jogged for not even 2 miles, for 20 minutes a day, it will put them in a completely different health space and ultimately live longer. That's what I hope ultimately people are in the sport to do. And the accolades and the successes and the different distances just like icing on the cake.
Good days add up. I like that. So, obviously you guys, all of you, are in a position to not be intimidated by this anymore, right? But as you all know, there's a lot of people in the world that
I would say that.
I couldn't imagine doing a triathlon.
There are a lot of people that are super intimidated, right? I wrote an article, one of the first pieces I ever wrote for Black Men's Health. I wrote an article entitled "What's a K?" and it was about access and approachability and relevance. And the story is related to a brother at church approaching me and kind of really starting to ask questions about this running because he knew I was running. I was a runner, and not like you all.
Stop the air quotes. Stop it.
So I understand, Reggie. I understand. But he knew I was running, and I was approachable, right? And I think that relevance is so important and so valuable because I'm not a performance athlete. I'm not some Olympic trainer or right. I'm a guy that at church and I'm chasing behind my kids and trying to keep up with this beautiful woman and just trying to find balance. And I think he saw that as like there's some approachability here. There's some balance. There's some access here. I think that's so key. Because a lot of people, even when he was asking that, he was really asking about like just how far, because people would say things like, hey, you still running those marathons? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not running marathons, right? Reggie, you said that point 2 matters. Hey, when you're running 5Ks, that point 1 matters, right? You get to 3 miles, and you're like, oh Lord, all right, come on, not finished yet, right? But it's important there in the sense of mindset. People are, and again, Keenan, Black Men's Run, you could be looking at somebody and somebody's celebrating a mile, which is amazing. Somebody might be celebrating 2 miles or 3 miles. Somebody might be celebrating, the 15th marathon that they've run this year or something of that nature, right? And everybody in between, which is so valuable, but it's really important for people to understand that they don't have to start on 10, right? If anything for Black Men's Health that I can help men understand is you don't have to start here all the time. Like you don't have to start on 11. You can start on 2, right? Let's get from 2 to 3. Let's get from 3 to 4. Maybe we can go from 4 to 6 and things of that nature. But sometimes people are just thinking it's so insurmountable, right? A marathon. You still running those marathons? You still running, because in their mind it's so big that it's really not if you piece it together. How do you best approach that, kid, with Black Men Run?
Well, to be honest, we celebrate being there. We celebrate presence. I can't tell you that there are brothers who come out after they've had knee surgery or hip surgery, and they really thought that they weren't going to be able to do anything else. Yeah. The fact that brother came out and he was out there, like you said, for 20 minutes. We're going to celebrate that, because to me, that's an accomplishment, because you could have just gave up. My knee blew out, had knee replacement. I'm just going to go with life. We celebrate just the presence, and we always do that. The great thing about those group runs is no matter the distance, we always tell your pace, your race. If you're going to run 8 miles, if you're going to run 1, when we come back together, did you accomplish your goal? Did you accomplish what you're out here to do today? And we're going to celebrate that. How many miles or how many minutes, whatever it's going to be. And I think that's what really energizes people. The race is great. But the camaraderie and the community, like you said. And then once you become known as that everybody who walks or runs is a runner. I'm just going to be honest with you. If your neighbors see you out running, and they may see you run 1/10 of a mile, but they are convinced you're a marathoner. They saw you in shorts and you were running. So you are classified as a marathoner. Like you said, 5K, 10K, you are a marathoner. So within our community is what makes all of us approachable. When they see us at church, they see us in the neighborhood, it's like, I know that person. I know I need to do something for my health, maybe I should ask them. I'm honored. I take that as an honor when somebody asks me, you know, some questions and they want to talk about maybe getting out there and doing something. I mean, if I reach one person, hey, I'm waiting for my seat in heaven because I did what I had to do. It was just one. I don't have to reach the masses, you know. So it's just trying to be that support system for our own community because Sabrina was talking. We know what's out there. We know those medications. We see our family members.
Yes.
We see them struggling with it. And we also hear every single person in our family say, I need to get out and exercise. I need to go walk. Well, let's do it. You know, it's
Right.
very expensive. It costs the shoes and your time. So let's try to figure out what we're going to do because shoes cost a whole lot less than they cost a whole lot less than pills. And so we just try to encourage the healthy living aspect of it. And really, like I said, get away from the racing and talk about, are you out there? Are you celebrating a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you said shoes, right? I don't want to get into a discussion about shoes because that's a whole nother discussion. But you talk about shoes, Reggie, you said something earlier about journey, right? The journey. Something that I think is so critical in running, I found out is you have to be, and I assume you all might agree with this in some way, shape, or form, you have to be selfish a little bit. I mean, so many times we're so selfless. We want to be so selfless in all that we do for our families, for our loved ones, etc. But in this case, to be disciplined, to be focused, to really do what you need to do, you have to be selfish in some way to get it in, right? For me, the shoes, Keenon, for me, it was so important, so invaluable to like get my shoes close to me somewhere where all I needed to do was get up and put them on, right? If anything interrupted me between me and the door, it was a lost cause, right? If I stop to check text messages, if I start to answer emails, if I needed to, whatever, any distraction between me and getting out there was putting that day's run in jeopardy. And the part about the journey, Reggie, that I think was very important because we all have loved ones, we all have people that care for us. You know, while people love us and care for us and want to do right by us and look out for us, that can also be a hindrance, right? Like, oh, it looks like it's about to rain outside. John, why don't you go later, right? Or it actually has started raining, or it's getting dark, or whatever it might be. It's always a reason not to do it. So, you know, Sabrina, Reggie, what do you do in the sense of finding that balance, right? I mean, you got families, you got loved ones, but you got to do what you got to do so you can be better for yourself and better for them. What's the balance there? How do you keep it moving forward?
I know Sabrina was going to make a comment earlier. You can go ahead and start.
I'm not even sure what I was going to say back then, but I will share. I do think it's important. You know, obviously it's easiest when you and your partner both kind of are equally yoked in that sense, in terms of, you know, you both have a commitment to fitness. And, you know, there's always, you know, one thing I always tell people that are kind of, you know, just starting out or just getting married or just starting to have kids, it's like, establish it early. You know, I work out in the morning, you get the evening, you know what I mean? There is no, you know, well, you know, I need, you know, the babies. No, you know, now that might mean I'm running at 5:30 in the morning, you know, so during certain periods but to get it in. But if it's, you know, it has to be important to you first, and then you give your you know, your spouse that time as well, because it's also important to them. And, you know, everybody wants everybody to be healthy, but it really starts with just making it a priority. And just like there's other things that you wouldn't kind of, you know, not do, like you wouldn't make your doctor's appointment, or you wouldn't, you know, just kind of blow off an important meeting. I mean, and at times it has to have that level of importance just in your own life to make sure you get it in.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to actually piggyback off of something that Keenan was speaking about in terms of like Black Men Run. I think my accountability system here, you know, in my home, it's just my wife and I, that she's accountable for like my health, period. And so it's not even about so much as the routine of, she knows that like I'll feel better, or, you know, it's important because I have a training to, you know, for whatever race coming up in however many months or whatever. For her, it's a matter of, I'm going to, because I'm your wife and because I'm your life partner first, my accountability is to keep you disciplined to tending to your health and whatever that means. And so it's not even just physical health. It's, you know, it's mental health. It's peace of mind. It's balance from like your work day. It's stress relief. It's my own alone time, because, you know, most of my day I'm client serving. So, you know, it's my time even away from her to be able to do with whatever I want with it. If that means I'm, you know, downstairs, you know, doing some kind of, I don't know, hybrid cross training. And I don't trust these Atlanta streets. So I have a trainer on my bike. So if I'm going down here and throw a TV show on and I'm just riding my bike, or allowing myself to go run. And of course, if I run, I have to take my, you know, phone and track it and do the live tracking so she can see exactly where I am. So this is, for her, it's more so around, she knows what it means and what it has meant for me in terms of preserving my own health. I'll share a quick sort of transparency, if I will. One of my close training partners, he and I were, so we grew up swimming together, and he also is now entered into the sport of triathlon. So super talented swimmer. I mean, he's just a phenomenal athlete, you know, no matter which way you cut it. If we played soccer, I want him on my team too. He's just phenomenal. And over the course of us training for some races before he had done his first full, which we did last year, he lost his father. And so I remember us on these longer runs, and, you know, you guys know about it, but like, you know, these longer runs, it's no one out there but like you and the pavement. And so to have a training partner out there during that particular moment, you know, I'm not gonna really put his business out there, but we emoted, right? He had things that he was able to kind of get us to get off of his chest and just get off of his mind, and just the idea, like Keenan said, the idea, the camaraderie, like that meant something. And then you know, a little over a year later, you know, I lost my father, and we're literally doing these same sort of runs, and you know, we had the opportunity to be in this true brotherhood, to again have this safe space, this space of real catharsis. And that's almost what this training and sort of working out has become for me. It's been this place of, you know, I've you know, enabled some healing for myself. I've also it's been my opportunity to say it's important to tend to yourself to make it through those hard times. I mean, think of this, even the situation now with the pandemic. There are a lot of people struggling, and they're not going to really say it, and they may not even know it until they have an accountability partner to help call them out. So it's not about, hey, come out here and run with me. It's more so get out the house and just be with me. And that means we're walking to the park, if that means we're walking the dog, if that means we're doing whatever. That's kind of what sport has become for me. Not to make it heavy, but just say that it can be whatever it is. Again, your pace, your race, absolutely. But you know, it's whatever this moment is for you. That's the beauty of carving out that time. And so that's why I can make it priority, because it absolutely transcends sport. It transcends athleticism. It transcends all of that, and gets to a place of not survival as much as it is just the quality of my life now. Like I'm a much more balanced person. I'm much more happy. You know, people know me by my smile, and I'm very, you know, lively, but there have been moments, some really, really, really dark moments that having a space like this saved me. And that's that camaraderie that kind of Keenan speaks about for Black Men Run. And, you know, and for my group, sort of Sun Chasers, like the part of what we like to encourage people is to say, like, make that space yours and go for it. Like, go all the way, like, don't stop, like actually get to that goal. And then when you get there, you know, recalibrate and find another goal. And because that discipline, that should never actually leave your life. You should actually always have a space kind of for yourself. It's not really selfish. It's actually probably the most selfless thing you can do, because how I show up for others is also important. And so
that's good. And necessary, right? Necessary.
Absolutely.
I promised I was going to keep this brief and break. We all have things to do. I want to give you all a couple minutes to close, just whatever you would share. And Reggie, I know you're giving me a fit about this as a baby runner, but it's also a respect thing, right? I mean, I spoke in a previous discussion about giving people their due, their respect based on that. And again, for people to have reached you all's levels and what you do and how you do it, it's to be honored and respected. And the fact that and you spoke about being heavy, man. Hey, this is all heavy. So it's beautiful that we can have discussions like this and get out. But the fact that you and your boy are out running and having a discussion, talking, See, that's why you're a real runner. Cause see, like I can't even talk and run at the same time. So I know I'm not a real runner yet. But hey, Keenon, why don't you help us close, and we'll go to Sabrina and Reggie. And I promise I'm gonna have you all back sooner than later, because there's so many different pieces that we could go into. I want to hear more about Black Men Run and share with the world. Sabrina, you got so much to talk about your business and what you do in the sense of habits and tending habits and how that could help us in so many different things. And Reggie, we obviously need to hear more about Sun Chasers and the wonderful work that you have going on and about to introduce to the world soon, and at such a larger trajectory. So Keenan, close it out for us if you will, brother.
Well, you only get one chance at this. You got one body, and it's your opportunity to take care of that temple. And if you can prioritize yourself for just 20 minutes a day, that priority will give you many more years of life. One of the things I always tell others in our group is you want your cup to runneth over, because that's the only way you can pour into other people. So make sure you fill up your cup. Make sure you're healthy living. Make sure you're dealing with your stress. Make sure you're dealing with a good work-life balance. And find exercise as an opportunity to help you deal with that. And a group like Black Men Run is a great opportunity to find others who are dealing with a very similar things in life. Our skin color helps us associate. Our skin color helps us talk about shared experiences. And that's a great opportunity to share those experiences, learn from those experiences, and grow as an individual. So I encourage you to find what motivates you and find a group to support your commitment to healthy living.
Amen. Sabrina, what you got?
I'll just say, for any of you that are struggling with getting off the couch and struggling, kind of waiting for that feeling of motivation, if you don't feel it, don't wait for it. Just do it anyway. Just start, just do it. Eventually that feeling of motivation will come, especially when you start seeing some results or some improvements in your fitness level.
Yep.
But don't wait for this, this magical moment of inspiration to get out there. You might have to just decide to do it first, and the motivation will follow.
That's good. That's good. I got a whole story about that result, Sabrina, I want to tell later.
Okay.
It relates to Letitia seeing me in the kitchen one day doing some mundane, regular task and making a comment like, "Hey, you looking good." I was like, "I'm going running right now. Right now, I'm going running." So those results matter. They encourage you. Go ahead, Reggie. Close us out, brother.
Sure. Good days add up. I think it's important to just remind yourself that you're worth the investment, but don't make it something that it's difficult to achieve. Don't overwhelm yourself. You're worth more than that, and it's important to just know that it's truly pacing yourself. You're worth the investment. Let the good days add up. Trust that first day to set you up for that second day, and before you know it, you'll be exactly where you want to be. So you have all the support of everybody here. Yeah, make it.
Excellent. Hey, well, thank you all for spending some time with us and giving us your time and attention. Again, if you will promise me that you'll be back, I'll make sure that I promise to make the invitation so we can continue to share what we know. And God bless you all. Y'all continue to be safe and well, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.